You are trespassing on HOA property, Hank. I am calling the police right now. Karen's voice sliced through the morning air like metal on metal. She stood in her pink robe and Slipper's phone raised like a weapon live streaming her rage. Behind her, the silver Jeep still smoked its nose, buried in what used to be my wall that had just saved my daughter's life. You are out of your mind, I shot back. Your kid could have killed mine. Karen ignored me, turning the phone toward herself with that fake trembling outrage she had perfected. You see this, neighbors? This illegal wall nearly took my daughter's life. Dangerous, unapproved construction. Her daughter Brittany stood nearby, shaking not from guilt but fury. Her voice cracked as she yelled, "Mom, my Jeep is ruined." Not a word about the fact she had almost driven through a child's bedroom. That was the moment my fear turned into fire. I felt my heartbeat hammer in my ears, the smell of gasoline and dust thick around me. Pam, my wife, grabbed my arm before I could take another step. "Do not," she whispered. "She is filming." I froze. My knuckles were white, my teeth grinding, every nerve begging me to explode, but Pam's grip was steady, unshakable. She knew this was not just another HOA spat. This was war, and Karen had just fired the first shot. The morning had started like heaven and turned into hell. Before the crash, the world was perfect, a cool Maine morning air, so sharp it felt like new life. I was in the garage, elbows deep, in an old lawnmower engine, the radio humming low. Pam was at the table, balancing invoices. Lily, our daughter, was asleep in her room at the front of the house, behind that 3-foot wall I had built myself. Brick by brick, legal inspected, perfect. That wall was my pride. It was not for show, it was for Lily. It gave her a boundary between our yard and the street. It kept her safe when she chased her red ball or rode her little pink bike. I had pulled every permit, paid every fee, passed every inspection. It was not just a wall, it was proof that doing things the right way still mattered. Then came the sound that tore the world in half, a low roar that turned into a deafening crunch, like the earth snapping its own bones. The wrench slipped from my hand, clattering on the floor as I bolted out the garage. The smell hit first, burnt rubber and dust. Then I saw it. The Jeep had plowed through the wall, bricks scattered like bones across the lawn. The front bumper stopped 3 feet from Lily's window. 3 feet. A little more gas, a little less brick, and my little girl would have been gone. I could not breathe. Pam's scream barely registered over the ringing in my ears. We just stood there, 2 people staring into the aftermath of what could have been our worst nightmare. Then, the Jeep door creaked open, and out stumbled Brittany Tillman. 17 spoiled and trembling for all the wrong reasons. Phone in hand, mascara streaked, she wailed into the mic, "Mom, it is totaled. My car is ruined. Ruined. Not I almost killed someone. Not. Is everyone okay? Just. My car." I took a step forward, voice shaking with rage. Pam's hand clamped down harder. "Not yet," she said. "Let her talk." That is when Karen appeared marching down her driveway like a general inspecting the battlefield bathrobe, fluttering slippers, slapping the pavement. She did not ask if anyone was hurt. She did not even look at the wreck. She pointed her phone at me and began to broadcast. "This man built an illegal wall. My daughter could have died. Look at this hazard," she shrieked. The words barely made sense. The wall she called illegal had just stopped her daughter's Jeep from turning my child into a headline. I was the villain in her twisted story. I stood in the yard covered in dust, watching her lie into the camera like she had rehearsed it. Pam slowly pulled out her own phone, hit record and whispered, "Let her dig her own grave." Karen strutted around like a performer on a stage made of bricks and smoke. The HOA warned him about this wall. I told him it was against code. I barked out a laugh, sharp and bitter. "You mean the wall I built with a city permit, the one your daughter just tried to drive through." She ignored me, turning the camera back to her face, tears now streaming for her audience. That was Karen Tillman for you, president of the Oak Meadows HOA. 5 years of suburban dictatorship built on fear and bylaws she made up on the spot. She had fined people for grass an inch too high, threatened neighbors over mailbox color, even reported my dog once for unauthorized barking. This was not our first fight. When I had first staked out the property line 2 years ago, she had come strutting over with that clipboard she treated like a badge. "You cannot build that here, Hank," she had said. "It is against the covenants." Actually, I had replied, holding up the printed code, "As long as it is under 4 feet and not solid privacy fencing, it is allowed." Her jaw clenched. "I am the president. I will be the judge of that." "And I am the guy with the permit," I said. She hated that. 2 weeks later, she called the city to report unpermitted work. The inspector, Dave, a tired man with coffee stains on his shirt, showed up, took one look at my paperwork, and left. Then she called the cops over noise violations. They left too. I documented everything: permits, photos, inspection cards. I knew she would come for me one day. I just did not know she would bring her daughter's Jeep as a battering ram. Now, watching her live stream her tantrum over the rubble, I could almost see the headlines she wanted: HOA president saves daughter from illegal wall disaster. The audacity made my blood boil. "Karen," I said, stepping closer, "your daughter's reckless driving did not just destroy my wall, it almost killed my child." She turned the camera on me, smiling that tight, venomous smile. "You will be hearing from my attorney, Mr. Gregory. That wall was a death trap." Pam pulled me back again, her eyes calm but burning. "Let her talk," she whispered. "Every word she says right now is evidence." She was right, so I said nothing. I just stood there while the police arrived, their flashing lights painting the wreckage blue and red. Brittany sat on the curb, still glued to her phone. Karen intercepted the officers like she owned them. "She is lucky to be alive," Karen announced dramatically. "That man built an unapproved wall that blocked her view of the road." The officer blinked. "Ma'am, she hit the wall head on, not while turning." Karen faltered for half a second, then pivoted. "Exactly. The wall should not have been there in the first place." The officer scribbled something on his pad. "Driver's name." "Brittany Tillman," she said, trying to sound composed. He nodded and tore off the citation. "You are being cited for inattentive driving, miss." Karen's smile cracked. She glanced at the camera, turned it off. The moment the cop car pulled away, she rounded on me with that same smug grin. "This is not over," she hissed. "No," I said quietly, "it is not." Hours later, the wreck was gone, towed away, leaving a trail of oil and shattered glass. The yard looked like a war zone. Pam and I stood in silence, staring at the gap where my wall used to be. "She is not letting this go," Pam said. "I know," I replied. "Neither am I." The air was still heavy with the smell of fuel and dirt. I walked toward the house every step, crunching over broken brick. Through the front window, I saw Lily's room. Her curtains were fluttering from the breeze. She had slept through it all safe only because of that wall. When I stepped inside, she was awake, standing in her doorway, clutching her stuffed bear. "Daddy, what was that noise?" she asked. I knelt down, pulled her into my arms, and felt her heartbeat against mine. "Just a bad driver, sweetie. But you are safe now. My wall kept you safe." Her head rested on my shoulder, and for the first time that day I let myself breathe. Out on the lawn, the dust had started to settle. Karen's house was dark now, but I could still feel her watching. This was not about bricks anymore. It was about control. About her needing to win, no matter who got crushed under her rules. I walked into the garage and sat on the workbench, staring at my hands, calloused, scarred, the hands of a man who builds things. I had built that wall to protect my family. Now it was gone, and the person responsible wanted to make me pay for it. I flexed my fingers, feeling the grit of cement still in my skin. I made a promise right then. Karen Tillman had just started something she could not finish. She thought she could twist the story, weaponize the system, use her fake rules to break me. But I fix things. I always have. Engines, pipes, homes, lives, and this time I was going to fix her lies. Brick by brick, until there was nothing left standing but the truth. My hands were calloused and stained with grease, the hands of a man who fixes things. Engines, fences, problems other people pretend do not exist. But this time the thing that needed fixing was not metal or wood. It was a lie. A big, loud, poisonous lie. That night, I sat at the kitchen table with Pam. The wreckage outside looked like a crime scene, but what really scared me was how quiet Karen's house had been since the crash. Quiet from her meant plotting. The woman did not breathe without a plan to ruin someone. Pam was scrolling through her phone, calm but sharp. She is going to make this about you, she said. She is too proud to admit her daughter messed up. She already has, I muttered. That live stream was a hit piece. Pam turned the phone toward me. The video had over 3,000 views on the local HOA gossip group. The caption read, "Illegal wall causes near tragedy." And there I was, frozen mid-frame, standing in the dust like the villain in her story. I felt heat climb up my neck. She is not just lying. She is rewriting reality. Pam reached across the table and took my hand. Then, we make sure our version is the one that sticks. But we do it smart. So we did what smart people do. When someone throws gasoline on their lives, we built a firewall. We backed up every photo, every permit, every inspection tag I had from the wall's construction. Pam organized it all into a folder she labeled The War. It was not a joke. It was preparation. I learned a long time ago that you cannot out-yell a bully, you outproof them. The week after the crash crawled by like a slow bleed. Every time I pulled into the driveway, that plywood patch mocked me. A scar where safety used to stand. Karen walked her dog past our house every morning, leash in one hand, smug grin on her face. Not a word. Just that look that said, "You do not know what is coming," Pam called it. The next Thursday, it came. A fat manila envelope slid through our mail slot, thudding onto the floor like a threat. The return address read, Tillman v. Gregory. My stomach dropped. Inside, a formal summons and complaint. The plaintiff, Brittany Tillman. The defendant, me. They were suing me for $25,000 for damages, emotional distress, and unsafe construction of an illegal wall. For a moment I just stared at the words, my brain refusing to believe the absurdity. The wall that saved her daughter's life was now the weapon they were suing me with. Pam took the papers from my hand, reading them silently. When she was done, she exhaled slowly and looked up. Her eyes were not scared. They were furious. She is not trying to win, Hank. She is trying to break us. I rubbed my temples. 25 grand, that is everything we have saved. Lily's college fund. Pam shook her head. We are not paying a dime. We fight. That is the thing about my wife. She does not shout. She strategizes. Within an hour, she had a lawyer's name on a sticky note. Ben Carter, a property dispute specialist known around Augusta for one thing, eating HOAs for breakfast. Walking into Ben's office felt like stepping into another world. The air smelled like old books and justice. He was not slick or flashy, just a man in rolled-up sleeves who listened. We laid everything on his desk, photos, permits, inspection tags, and Pam's video of Karen's livestream. He watched the footage, rewound it, played it again, then he leaned back, grinning like a man who had just been handed a winning lottery ticket. This, he said, is the dumbest lawsuit I have seen in 10 years. And that is saying something. So we can fight it, I asked. Fight it. He laughed. We are going to dismantle it. You've got documentation, timestamp, city approval, video evidence, and an opponent with the emotional intelligence of a wet cat. We will file for summary judgment and counterclaim for damages. By the time I am done, she will wish she had never spelled your name. For the first time since the crash, I smiled. It felt strange, like flexing a muscle that had not worked in weeks. The next few days turned our kitchen into a war room. Pam built spreadsheets. I pulled out folders. Ben gave us homework. Discovery, he called it. I called it Tuesday. I spent hours digging through my workshop, finding old project photos, receipts from the brick supplier, inspection cards stamped green by Dave the city inspector. Every paper was a bullet in our chamber. Every image was another nail in Karen's coffin of lies. Pam handled the digital side. She uploaded photos, annotated documents, and cross-referenced inspection dates. When she finished, she smiled and said, "There. Now we have got more paperwork than the IRS." "That is not a defense," I said. "No," she replied. "It is a weapon." Karen must have felt our silence because she decided to make some noise. A few days after Ben filed our response, another envelope showed up. This one was from the Oak Meadows Architectural Committee, Karen's pet council. It accused me of an unapproved modification to community aesthetics. Translation, the plywood patch I had used to cover the hole was an eyesore. They demanded I remove it within 7 days or face a $100 a day fine. I laughed out loud. She is fining me for fixing the damage her daughter caused. Pam's lips pressed into a thin line. She is trying to bait you. Do not take it. Instead, we forwarded the letter to Ben. He drafted a cease and desist so sharp it could have drawn blood. But Karen was not finished. She never is. A week later, someone knocked on our door. A short, stocky man in a cheap polo stood there clutching a clipboard like it made him powerful. The shirt read, Community Standards Inspector. I had never seen him before in my life. Hank Gregory, he asked, eyes already scanning the property. Who is asking? I said. I am here to conduct a compliance inspection on your unapproved frontal barrier. My what? Your wall, sir. It is in violation of Section 4, Paragraph B. Let me stop you right there, I said. First, you are not stepping on my property. Second, you are not a city inspector. So who do you work for? He puffed up his chest. I am contracted by the Oak Meadows HOA. Contracted by Karen, you mean? The man flushed. Sir, refusal to cooperate may result in fines. I stepped closer, voice low and even. If you do not remove your foot from my porch in 2 seconds, you are going to learn what torque feels like. He stumbled backward, muttering something about non-cooperation before nearly tripping over his own car. Pam appeared behind me, arms folded. What was that? Karen's latest circus act, I said. She opened her laptop, typed George P. Wexler into Google. Nothing. No license, no record, no job listing. He was a ghost. Or, more likely, just some guy Karen hired off Craigslist with a clipboard and a bad attitude. We sent everything to Ben. He was livid. That is harassment and witness tampering, he said. I am filing a motion for sanctions first thing tomorrow. But that night, I could not sleep. Every creak of the house made me sit up. I realized something. I was not angry anymore. I was ready. Karen wanted to play dirty. I was done playing defense. So I went out to the garage and started building. Not a wall this time, but a trap. I found an old broken security camera with a blinking red light. I mounted it in a weatherproof box, ran a thick black wire down the side, and made sure it looked expensive and important. Then I put it right where the wall had been obvious glowing, impossible to ignore. Pam walked in, arms crossed. What are you doing? Baiting the hook, I said. For who? For whoever she sends next. But the real trick was not the fake camera, it was the real one. Hidden deep in the hedge across the yard, a tiny high-definition trail cam, motion-activated, silent and perfect. The decoy would draw their eyes. The hidden one would record their crimes. 3 nights later, the trap sprung. My phone buzzed at 11:03 p.m. Motion detected. I pulled up the feed. A figure in a hoodie crept across the lawn. Teenager, clumsy, nervous. He walked right up to the decoy and snipped the wire with cutters. Then he started prying at the box. I watched every second in 1080p. Then I hit save. I did not call the cops. Not yet. I walked out onto the porch and flipped on the floodlight. Looking for something, I asked. He froze, eyes wide, cutters in hand. I was not doing anything. I held up my phone. Funny, because this says otherwise. He looked at the screen, saw himself, caught red-handed, and went pale. Please do not call the police, he begged. Then tell me who sent you. He hesitated, then whispered, Karen Tillman. She said the camera was illegal. She gave me $50 to take it down. I almost laughed. $50 to commit a crime? Come on, I said. We are going to see your parents. 10 minutes later, I had a signed confession from the kid 2 pages witnessed by his mom and dad. Proof of Karen's latest stunt. Pam scanned it, sent it to Ben. His reply came fast. This is gold. She is finished. But I knew Karen. She does not finish. She festers. And I was not done fixing things. Not yet. It was not an accident. It was not bad luck. And it damn sure was not my fault. That is what the footage proved. Clear as sunlight on chrome. Brittany had not been blocked by my wall. She had stomped the gas instead of the brake. You could see it frame by frame. The car jerking forward wheels, spitting gravel, her head turned down like she was checking her phone. A heartbeat later impact. When I showed the clip to Ben Carter, he leaned back in his chair and let out a low whistle. Well, Hank, if this does not vaporize their case, I do not know what does. He played it again, zooming in, his grin growing with every second. Look at that, no obstruction, no blocked view. Just a textbook example of teenage panic. Pam folded her arms, her expression hard. And Karen's livestream shows her immediate intent to lie. She did not even ask if anyone was hurt. Exactly, Ben said. That is malice, and we will make sure the judge sees every pixel of it. I thought that was the end of it, but I should have known better. Karen Tillman does not quit when she is wrong. She doubles down. A few days after Ben filed our motion, another letter arrived, this one dressed up with a new letterhead, Oak Meadows Homeowners Association Architectural Committee. It accused me of failure to maintain a uniform property appearance and unauthorized modifications following structural damage. In plain English, they were fining me $100 a day because the wall her daughter destroyed was not pretty enough anymore. Pam read the notice and snorted. She is fining us for her kid's crash. She is not fining, I said. She is fishing, trying to get a reaction. Pam smirked. Then let us give her nothing but silence. Drives narcissists insane, but Karen was not content with letters. 3 mornings later, there was a knock on the door. I opened it and nearly laughed out loud. There he was again, the fake inspector. Clipboard, cheap polo and all? Morning, he said stiffly. Follow-up inspection per section 12, G. I smiled without humor. The section that does not exist. He blinked. Sir, refusing inspection will result in fines. I stepped forward, slow, deliberate. You got a warrant? No, sir. Then you are trespassing. He tried to stand his ground. I just kept talking, voice low. You can tell Karen this next time she wants to send a clown to my house. She better make sure the shoes fit. The man turned red, muttered something about filing a report, and hustled back to his car. Pam was already filming the taillights. Got him, she said. She ran his plates through a public registry. The car was registered to Wexler Home Services, a one-man handyman outfit. She found his Facebook page, 10 likes, 1 blurry photo, and a job post from Karen's neighborhood forum dated 2 days before. Looking for someone to perform HOA inspections, quick cash. Proof of Karen's harassment again. We sent it straight to Ben. He filed a motion for sanctions so fast, I could practically hear Karen's phone exploding across the street. But the real battle was not in her driveway anymore. It was in my head. I could not stop thinking about the way she smiled while lying to that camera, the sheer ease of it. People like Karen thrive on chaos because it makes them feel powerful. So, I decided to change the game. That night I installed a second layer of cameras, real ones, this time hidden behind motion lights, tucked under eaves and disguised as birdhouses. The decoy she had sent the kid to destroy was still there, blinking red like bait. If she wanted to play dirty, I would record every move. It did not take long. 3 nights later, around midnight, my phone buzzed. Motion detected. I opened the app and saw a dark figure creeping across my yard again. Not the same kid, taller, heavier, moving with practiced stealth. Gloves, black hoodie, flashlight off. He headed straight for the fake camera. I hit record, heart pounding. This one did not just snip the wire. He yanked the whole junction box off the post and stuffed it into a backpack. Then he turned toward the hedge, exactly where the real camera sat. He scanned the area, clearly suspicious. For a moment, I thought he might find it. Then, mercifully, a car passed and he bolted. When I replayed the footage, I recognized the gate the way he kept one hand near his belt. Security guard. HOA security. Karen had escalated again. The next morning, Pam called Ben before I had even finished my coffee. She is sending hired muscle now, she said flatly. Ben sighed. This is intimidation, plain and simple. Keep the footage safe. I will bring it up in court. But that was not the only problem. That same afternoon, we received another surprise, an official-looking affidavit signed by our quiet neighbor Finley, the old man 2 houses down. It claimed he had seen me using substandard materials and unsafe practices during the wall's construction. It said I had bragged about cutting corners. It was pure fiction. I stared at the paper jaw tight. Finley. Why would he lie like this? Pam's eyes narrowed. Because Karen found another pawn. He is a widower, I said quietly. She probably scared him into it. Pam was already thinking. Then we do not fight the lie, we expose it. Ben agreed. People who are coached always overplay their part, he said. Get him talking. Do not accuse. Just let him trip over his own story. So, the next day, I found Finley trimming his rose bushes. Hey, Finley, I called. Roses look good this year. He jumped startled, then forced a smile. Oh, hey, Hank. Just keeping busy. Yeah, I know how that is, I said. You know, it takes a lot of work to build something right, especially something meant to last. He nodded, not meeting my eyes. I leaned on the fence. Funny thing, though, I saw that statement you signed for Karen. Said I used cheap materials. Just wanted to make sure you remembered right. Was that a Tuesday or Wednesday? He froze. Tuesday, I think. Maybe Wednesday. I tilted my head. So which one? He stammered. Tuesday. And you said you heard me bragging about it. Was I talking to someone? You were on the phone. Right, I said, keeping my voice casual. That is strange, though. I do not take calls while mixing mortar. Need both hands, you know. His face paled. Right on cue, Pam stepped out onto the porch, phone in hand. Sorry to interrupt, Hank, she said sweetly. I was just replaying the audio from the crash. Finley, you might like this. She hit play. Tires screech. The crunch of impact. And then clear as a bell, Finley's voice shouting from off camera. Whoa! Did you see that? She came flying out of there. Never even looked. Finley went still pruning shears, trembling in his hand. Pam smiled politely. Seems your memory is better than you think, he muttered something incoherent and hurried inside the screen door, slamming behind him. That recording became Exhibit A in Ben's next filing. Perjury witness tampering, the whole ugly mess. Karen had tried to turn an old man into her weapon, and it had just blown up in her face. But she still had one card left to play. The following evening, Lily came home from school, quiet and pale. She set her backpack down and said, Dad, my friends are talking about Brittany Tillman. Pam and I exchanged a look. What about her? I asked. They said she had a party the night before the crash, Lily whispered. At her house. And that she was drinking. My blood went cold. You are sure? Lily nodded. Someone in her group chat posted screenshots. She held out her phone. There it was, Brittany texting her friend the morning of the crash. My mom says, we can blame the neighbor's stupid wall. I should not have had so much wine last night. My head is pounding. Pam snapped a photo of the screen. Her voice trembled, not from fear, but from fury. That is it, Hank. That is motive and intent. They were not just lying, they were covering up a DUI. We sent it to Ben immediately. He called within minutes. This blows the case wide open, he said. That message proves deliberate deception. They filed a fraudulent claim to hide a crime. The judge will shred them. But Karen was not done trying to rewrite the story. The next day, she filed a motion to suppress inadmissible private communications. The judge set a hearing. It would all come down to that room. The night before court, I could not sit still. I kept pacing the living room, staring at the stack of evidence on the coffee table, permits, inspection, tags, photos, videos, the kids' confession, Finley's audio, the text, screenshots. A whole fortress of truth, built brick by brick. Pam finally stopped me with a hand on my chest. You built a wall to protect our daughter, she said softly. Now you have built another one to protect our name. I looked at her, the woman who had kept me from losing my temper when it mattered most, and tomorrow, I said, Karen Tillman is going to crash straight into it. I did not know then that the final piece of proof, the one that would end everything, was already on its way to our doorstep. The morning of the hearing, the sky looked like wet steel. Heavy, low clouds hung over Augusta, pressing the air flat and cold. Pam and I had not slept much. We went over the evidence again and again, permits, videos, Finley's recording the screenshots of Brittany's confession. It all lined up like dominoes waiting to fall. Still, I could not shake the feeling that Karen would try something desperate. We were halfway to the courthouse when the doorbell rang. I opened the door and froze. A man in a brown delivery uniform stood on the porch holding a small package. He looked vaguely familiar, broad shoulders, kind eyes, early 30s. Mr. Gregory? He asked. Yeah, I think this belongs to you. He held up a small USB drive in a plastic bag. I was driving the delivery truck on your street the day that accident happened. My dash cam records everything. I saw it. Figured you might want a copy. For a second, I just stared. The weight of that tiny piece of plastic might as well have been a brick of gold. Wait, you were there. You caught the crash. Yeah, he said, scratching the back of his neck. Heard about the lawsuit. Thought it was wrong. The footage shows everything. Clear as day. Before I could thank him, he tipped his cap and walked off, climbing into his truck and disappearing down the road like some quiet messenger sent by fate. Pam's eyes were wide. Hank, plug it in. We did not even make it to the table. I jammed the drive into my laptop. The file loaded instantly. The dashcam view was crystal clear, wide angle, 60 frames per second, time stamped to the second of the crash. There it was. Our street, the morning sun, my house in the background, the Jeep idling at the end of Karen's driveway perfectly visible from the road. No blind spots, no obstruction. The wall was not even close to her line of sight. Then, just as the delivery truck passed, the camera caught Brittany's face. She was looking down at her phone, her thumbs moving. Then the Jeep lunged forward like it had been kicked by the devil. Tires screamed, metal met brick, the whole screen filled with dust and debris. When it cleared, the Jeep sat motionless in my yard, steam rising from the hood. Pam covered her mouth. Oh my God. She was texting. Not just texting, I said quietly. She was killing time until she killed something else. We sent the file to Ben with one line. Final nail. He called within minutes. Get to the courthouse. Now. The courtroom smelled like old paper and polished wood. Small room, maybe 20 people total. Karen sat at the plaintiff's table beside her lawyer, looking smug and sharp in a dark suit. Brittany sat next to her, pale and nervous, clutching a tissue like it was a prop. Across the aisle, Pam sat beside me, calm as ever. Ben Carter stood at the front, hands clasped the picture of quiet confidence. The judge entered a woman in her 60s with eyes like scalpels and a reputation for cutting through nonsense. Court is in session, she said. Karen's lawyer stood first, putting on his best performance. Your Honor, he began, this is a case about negligence and disregard for community safety. My client's daughter narrowly escaped serious injury due to the defendant's illegally constructed wall. Ben interrupted smoothly. Your Honor, if I may, illegally constructed, is already disproven by the permits on file with the city. The judge raised an eyebrow. You will have your turn, Mr. Carter. Karen's lawyer pressed on, voice swelling with faux emotion. The emotional trauma to a young girl, the psychological toll, Mr. Gregory's reckless behavior. Pam leaned over to me and whispered, He is auditioning, not litigating. I nearly laughed. Then, it was Ben's turn. He rose, buttoning his jacket with a calm that could silence a riot. Your Honor, what you just heard is fiction. A very creative one, but fiction nonetheless. The truth is simpler. He began laying the evidence like bricks. First, the building permits, stamped, signed, dated. Next, inspection reports, both mid and final, approved by City Inspector Dave. Every box checked, every regulation followed, Ben said. This was not a man cutting corners. This was a man protecting his family. Then he moved to the photos, sightline shots showing the road perfectly visible from Karen's driveway. No obstruction, he said, unless Miss Tillman's daughter was driving blindfolded. A ripple of laughter broke through the courtroom. The judge did not stop it. Then came the recordings. Finley's affidavit versus Finley's real voice. Ben played the audio from our security footage, the unmistakable shout. She came flying out of there, never even looked. Finley, sitting in the back row, turned a color somewhere between shame and heart attack. Next, Ben pulled out the kid's handwritten confession, the one caught vandalizing the fake camera. He read it aloud. Karen Tillman paid me $50 to remove Mr. Gregory's camera. She said it was illegal. The judge's pen stopped moving. Her eyes snapped up. She what? Ben did not even flinch. Yes, Your Honor. Miss Tillman has shown a consistent pattern of intimidation, deception, and misuse of authority. Karen's lawyer tried to object, but the judge waved him down. I am listening. And then Ben smiled, that slow, devastating lawyer smile. We are not done. He pulled up the text screenshots on the big monitor. Your Honor, this is a message sent by Plaintiff Brittany Tillman the morning of the incident. He read it aloud. My mom says we can blame the neighbors. Stupid wall. I should not have had so much wine last night. My head is pounding. The silence that followed was deafening. Even the fluorescent lights seemed to dim. The judge leaned back slowly. Is this verified? Yes, Your Honor, Ben said. Time-stamped, extracted from the original message thread, and verified by metadata. It establishes clear intent to deceive this court. Karen's face drained of color. Brittany started crying, whispering, Mom, I told you. The judge slammed her gavel once. Enough. Ben turned toward us and gave a subtle nod. Then he pulled out the final card. Your Honor, he said this morning new evidence was delivered to my client. Footage from an independent third party, the dash cam of a delivery truck that happened to pass the scene seconds before the collision. The judge tilted her head. Let us see it. Ben inserted the USB drive. The lights dimmed. The screen flickered to life. The video rolled clear, clean, devastating. You could see everything. The road, the driveway, the Jeep, and Brittany looking down at her phone. Then the surge, the screech, the explosion of bricks. When it ended, the courtroom stayed silent for a full 5 seconds. Then the judge spoke quietly, but with the force of a hammer. This is one of the most blatant abuses of the legal system I have seen in 20 years. She looked at Karen, her eyes like knives. You lied to this court. You perjured yourself. You weaponized the justice system to hide your daughter's negligence. I am dismissing this case with prejudice. Karen's lawyer slumped. Brittany sobbed. The sound echoed like a confession. But the judge was not finished. She pointed her gavel at them both. Furthermore, I am ordering full reimbursement of Mr. Gregory's legal fees and damages for the destruction of his property. And I am referring this matter to the district attorney for potential criminal charges, perjury, false report, and insurance fraud. The gavel cracked down like thunder. Case dismissed. For a second, I did not move, did not breathe, did not even blink. It was over, just like that. Pam squeezed my hand. You did it, she whispered. I shook my head. We did it. Karen sat frozen, staring straight ahead, her world collapsing in real time. When she finally turned toward me, there was no rage left, just the hollow stare of someone who had run out of lies. We walked out of that courtroom into sunlight that felt cleaner than air itself. Every breath tasted like relief. Ben joined us on the courthouse steps. I will handle the fee paperwork, he said, smiling. You two go home, rebuild your wall. You have earned it. Pam laughed softly. Maybe we will build it twice as strong. Ben winked. Just make sure it is still under 4 feet. Weeks passed. The check came in Karen's insurer covering repairs and every cent of our legal fees. The DA filed charges. Word spread fast. By the next HOA meeting, Karen Tillman was no longer president. The community voted her out in a landslide. That is when I made my move. I ran for a seat on the board. Not out of revenge, but out of principle. You cannot fix a system by screaming at it. You fix it from the inside. And I won. My first rule as a new board member. A simple one: if your driveway visibility is blocked by bushes, fences, or decorative hedges, you must install a convex mirror. Cheap, effective common sense. Passed unanimously. Guess whose hedges suddenly qualified as visibility obstruction? Right? Karen Tillman. I personally hand-delivered her compliance notice along with a brand new safety mirror and an instruction sheet. 30 days to install, I said, smiling. She glared at me, but there was nothing left in her arsenal. A week later, the mirror went up shiny, perfectly angled, and facing directly toward my rebuilt wall. Now, every morning when she backs out of her driveway, she has to look straight at it. The wall that survived her lies the house that did not break and the neighbor who refused to bow. The street is quiet now. Peaceful. Kids ride their bikes again. Finley waves first. Pam and I drink our coffee on the porch and watch the light slide along the stone cap of the new wall. It is more than brick now. It is a promise, a boundary, proof that sometimes doing things by the book is not weakness, it is power. People still ask me how we won. I tell them the truth. We did not shout. We stacked proof. We did not fight dirty. We let the truth do the swinging. My name is Hank Gregory. I fix things, engines, fences, messes people make. This time what I fixed was justice itself. Winning should have felt like the end, but the truth is, endings are quieter than you think. They do not explode or announce themselves. They settle in like dust, slow and soft, until one day you realize the noise is gone. After the case, our lives did not snap back to normal overnight. The house still bore scars, chips in the foundation, a patch of grass that refused to grow where the Jeep's tires had torn through. But inside, things began to heal. Lily started sleeping through the night again. Pam stopped checking the security feed before bed. And me, I started breathing, without waiting for the next knock on the door. Karen's trial for perjury took months to process, but the neighborhood found out long before the papers did. Word moves fast in small places. The same people who once whispered about that dangerous wall now stopped by to apologize, bringing cookies and excuses. I accepted both, but I did not forget. One morning, Finley walked over, holding a rose cutting. His hands trembled. "For your wife's garden," he said quietly, "and for the trouble I caused." I looked at him for a long time, then nodded. "Just plant it straight, Finley," I said. "That is all that matters." He smiled, relieved. That was enough. Pam and I rebuilt the wall, brick by brick. The same way I had built the first one, but this time neighbors showed up. Some brought shovels, some just coffee. Even Dave, the city inspector, stopped by with a new permit tag and a grin. "You know," he said, sticking the green sticker onto my clipboard, "I am framing this one." Pam laughed. "Make him sign it first." The rebuild took 3 weekends. Every brick we set felt like sealing up the past. The mortar mix was stronger, the foundation deeper, the corners straighter. But what mattered was not the structure, it was what it stood for now. Not defense, not defiance, proof that the truth once built does not crumble. When we laid the last capstone, Pam stood back and wiped her hands. "Looks even better than before. It is not just a wall," I said. "It is a line. Between lies and living right." That night we sat on the porch, coffee in hand, watching the sunset hit the new stone face. The reflection from Karen's required safety mirror caught the light perfectly, bouncing it right back at us like a silent salute. Pam smirked. "You think she knows she is giving us free sunlight every evening?" "Oh, she knows," I said, "and that is the best part. By summer, the street had changed. No more HOA patrols, no more fake inspectors, no more Karen turning every minor inconvenience into a federal case. The new president, a retired firefighter named Bill, ran meetings that actually talked about fixing potholes and hosting barbecues instead of measuring grass height. It felt like a neighborhood again. But justice is not free. It costs time, money, and peace of mind. There were nights when I thought I would lose it, when I stared at the lawsuit papers and wondered if it was worth it. It was. Not because of the payout or the apology, because I learned something simple but brutal. You do not have to raise your voice to fight back. You just have to keep your receipts. One evening, Lily asked me, "Daddy, why did Miss Tillman hate our wall so much?" I thought about that for a while. Because she could not control it, I said, "Finally, some people cannot stand what they cannot control." She frowned. "But you did not do anything wrong." "No," I said, pulling her close. "But that is why you build your walls strong. Not to keep people out, but to keep truth standing when lies start throwing stones." Pam smiled from the kitchen doorway. "You sound like a preacher, Hank." "Maybe," I said. "Or maybe I am just a man who is tired of rebuilding the same things twice." Karen sold her house 3 months later. The sign went up quietly. One morning the moving truck came at dawn. No goodbye, no wave. Just gone. The rumor was the legal bills gutted her savings. Some said she moved in with her sister in Bangor. Others said she left the state. I did not care. The mirror stayed. The bylaws made sure of that. The day she left, I stood by the mailbox watching the last box disappear into the truck. Pam joined me, arms crossed. "You are not gloating?" "No," I said. "I'm fixing." "Fixing what?" The silence she broke. We stood there until the truck turned the corner and the neighborhood fell into a peace I had not felt in years. A week later, I attended my first HOA meeting as an elected member. We sat in the same rec hall Karen had once ruled from like a throne. The air was different now, less tension, more laughter. Bill opened with a simple agenda: community safety, pothole repairs, and the annual chili cook-off. When it was my turn to speak, I stood. "We cannot change what this neighborhood was," I said, "but we can decide what it becomes. No more fear letters. No more clipboard warriors. We enforce fairness, not egos. If you want to build something, do it right and keep your permits where Karen cannot find them." The room laughed. It felt good to laugh again. That night, I walked home under the streetlights, feeling lighter than I had in months. Sometimes I catch myself replaying the sound of that crash, the roar, the crunch, the silence after. If you had told me then that it would end with me on an HOA board shaking hands with the same neighbors who once avoided eye contact, I would have laughed in your face. But life has a way of circling back, hammer and chisel in hand, reshaping what is broken. Now every morning starts the same. Coffee with Pam, birds in the yard, the hum of an engine from my workshop. The wall stands firm, red brick glowing under the sunrise, and across the street, the convex mirror flashes the same light back like a quiet reminder the truth reflects, always. People stop sometimes and ask what happened. I tell them the short version. A teenager hit my wall. Her mom sued me. I fixed both. But what I really mean is this. When someone tries to tear down what is right, you do not meet them with noise. You meet them with proof. You meet them with patience. You meet them with everything they do not expect. A few months after it was all over, I found something strange in the mail. No return address. Just a plain envelope with my name handwritten in neat cursive. Inside was a single note. "Mr. Gregory, you did not deserve what happened. I hope you know I am sorry. Brittany." There was no last name, no apology, big enough for what her family had done. But it did not need one. I showed the note to Pam. She read it, smiled softly, and said, "Then maybe two families finally fixed something." I folded it once and tucked it into the folder labeled "The War." Not as a trophy, just as a reminder. That sometimes even the worst stories can find an honest ending. That evening I took Lily for a walk down the street. The air smelled like rain and cut grass. She skipped ahead, tracing her fingers along the top of the wall as we passed. "Daddy," she said, "you think people will ever stop fighting over fences?" I smiled. "No, sweetheart, but if they build them right, they will fight less." She laughed, the kind of laugh that scrubs the soul clean. Pam waved from the porch. For once, the sound of peace did not feel fragile. The world is full of people like Karen Tillman, loud, certain, convinced their rules matter more than reason. But if this whole nightmare taught me anything, it is that quiet people win wars too. We just do it brick by brick, document by document, truth by truth. My name is Hank Gregory. I fix things. Sometimes engines, sometimes fences, and sometimes the lies people build around themselves. The wall stands. So do we. They say peace is just the pause between storms. Maybe they are right, but this time the quiet did not feel temporary. It felt earned. Months passed. The seasons shifted like the world was exhaling after holding its breath too long. Snow melted off the new wall, ran in thin silver lines down the mortar seams, and froze again at night, glinting under the porch light like veins of steel. Every time I saw it, I thought about how close I had come to losing everything and how strange it was. Pam said it best one morning over coffee. "It is not about winning, Hank. It is about stopping the noise." She was right. Because when the shouting ends, what is left is what you built, your name, your truth, and the people still sitting beside you when the dust settles. Sometimes I catch myself replaying the sound of that crash. Not the metal or the glass, just the moment before. The stillness. The second you think the world is fine and then it is not. That is what trauma does. It hides in the pauses. But the older I get, the more I realize life is just a collection of rebuilt things, fences, engines, trust. I still work in my garage most mornings. The smell of oil and sawdust is still my kind of therapy. The walls are lined with tools that have been in my family for 3 generations, each one scarred, chipped, but unbreakable. Sometimes Lily joins me sitting cross-legged on the workbench, asking questions I cannot always answer. "How do you fix something that is broken in here?" she once asked, tapping her chest. I told her, "You build something honest on top of it." She nodded like she understood. Maybe one day she will. Pam says, "I have mellowed." Maybe she is right. I do not yell at broken bolts anymore. I do not pace when paperwork piles up. I have learned patience the hard way through lawsuits, lies, and long nights staring at ceilings. There is a kind of quiet strength in knowing you survived someone's worst version of you. It makes you harder to shake. The neighborhood changed in ways I did not expect. The HOA is not the enemy anymore. The new board meets once a month in Bill's garage, folding chairs and beer instead of podiums and policies. We fix things that matter: potholes, drainage, community lights. Kids run through sprinklers again. Nobody measures lawns. Nobody counts fence slats. And for the first time in years, nobody lives afraid of a knock on the door. They still tell my story at meetings sometimes, the man who turned a lawsuit into a lesson. It has become neighborhood folklore, half legend, half warning. Do not mess with Gregory's wall, they joke. But behind the laughter is something true respect. Not the loud kind you demand, but the quiet kind you earn. One afternoon, Bill dropped by while I was resealing the stone cap. "You ever think about selling this place?" he asked. "Sell?" I laughed. "I built half my sanity into this wall. Why would I leave?" He nodded. "Figured you would not. Some walls are worth keeping." "Some walls," I said, "are worth fighting for." A few months later, a letter arrived from the county. It was not bad news. This time it was a commendation. Turns out our little case had been used as an example in a state ethics seminar for homeowners associations. Proper documentation and accountability in private governance. That was the title. Bureaucratic, sure, but it meant something. It meant the truth had gone further than our yard. It had built something beyond us. Pam framed the letter. "For the war room," she said with a smile. I laughed. "It is not a war room anymore." "Then call it what it is," she said. "A proof room." One evening long after Lily had gone to bed, I found myself standing outside staring at the mirror across the street, Karen's mirror. It still reflected our house perfectly. For a second, I thought I saw movement, a flicker of blonde hair, a shape from memory, but it was just the wind in the hedges. Funny thing about mirrors, they do not just reflect what is there, they remind you what is gone. I walked along the wall, running my hand over the cool stone. Each brick felt like a heartbeat, steady and deliberate. The night air smelled like wet earth and pine. Somewhere down the block, someone was laughing. The sound drifted across the quiet like music. Pam joined me, slipping her hand into mine. "You are thinking again," she said softly. "Always. About her." "No," I said. "About us. About how fragile peace is. How strong it can be if you hold it the right way." She leaned her head against my shoulder. "Then stop thinking and just listen." So I did. Crickets. The rustle of leaves. The low hum of a world that had finally learned to leave us alone. The next morning, I took Lily to school. We drove past the rebuilt wall, the mirror, the mailbox that once stood at the center of a war. She looked out the window and said, "Daddy, it is weird how quiet it is now." "Quiet is good," I said. "Means everything is working." "Do you think Miss Tillman ever learned her lesson?" I smiled. "Maybe. Or maybe life will teach her in its own way. It always does." At the next red light, Lily looked thoughtful. "You fixed a lot of things, huh?" "Yeah," I said. "I fix things. It is what I do." "Even people?" she asked. I laughed. "Sometimes. But only the ones who want to be fixed." A year later, the wall made the local paper again, this time in a feature called Boundaries That Protect. The journalist called it symbolic, a reminder that good fences do not make enemies, they make order. They interviewed me in the garage, asked if I had any advice for people dealing with bullies. "Yeah," I said. "Do not let anger build your walls. Let truth do it. It lasts longer." They ran that quote under a photo of me standing by the wall, arms crossed, sunset hitting the bricks behind me. I did not think much of it. Sometimes late at night, I still walk the property line. Old habits. The wall casts a long shadow under the moonlight. I trail my fingers along the top and think about how something so simple, brick mortar patience, stood up against manipulation, greed, and fear. It was not luck, it was discipline. People think justice happens in courtrooms. It does not. It happens in garages, on porches, in folders labeled the war. It happens when good people refuse to back down, even when it is inconvenient, even when it is lonely. If there is one thing I have learned, it is that the loudest person in the room is not always right. The most organized one usually is. Keep your paperwork straight, your hands steady, and your temper in check. That is how you win. Now, every Sunday, Pam and I host what used to be the HOA barbecue. No rules, no motions, just food and laughter. Lily runs around with the neighborhood kids, chalking smiley faces on the new wall. Bill plays guitar. Finley tells bad jokes. And sometimes in the middle of it all, I catch myself looking up, realizing this is what normal feels like again. Not flashy, not loud, just steady. That is the thing about fixing it, is never just about the object. It is about the faith that something broken can be made whole again, whether it is a wall, a name, or a family. The day the new couple across the street finished painting their fence, the husband waved at me. "Hey, Mr. Gregory, thanks for the help earlier." I raised my coffee. "Looks good." "Make sure you file the permit," he laughed. "Already did. Learned from the best." Pam nudged me. "You have become the neighborhood legend." "I would rather be the neighborhood warning," I said, and she laughed. It is strange. The wall that once divided now connects. People lean against it to talk. Kids balance along it like a balance beam. Even the mail carrier uses it as a rest stop. Proof that what is built right does not just last, it serves. When the wind hits it just right, I swear I can hear the faint echo of that crash. Not as a memory of fear, but as a reminder, nothing worth keeping comes easy. Just this, how one man learned that the hardest things to fix are not made of brick, they are made of pride, patience, and time. My name is still Hank Gregory. I still fix things. Engines, walls, truths people tried to bury. And when I am done for the day, I sit on that porch with Pam and Lily, coffee in hand, peace in reach, and I look at the wall, steady, silent, alive, with the light bouncing off Karen's old mirror. It does not gloat, it does not shout, it just stands. And sometimes, that is all the victory you need.